Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us this month for Tiger Talk. This month, we're going to talk about BAR, Building Assets, Reducing Risks, a program that we've talked about before at Marshall High School. It's existed for, I think this is our 5th year now at the high school, and we're bringing it into some of our other levels too. But this month specifically, we're talking about the high school and some work taking place there. We've really got some great things taking place, and it's a framework that looks at how we support students at high school. So with me today, we have Emily Snyder. She's our BAR coordinator at the high school, and Brian Jones, the principal at the high school. So we'll come and learn or hear a little more from them in just a little bit. Before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about just some things happening in general in our district, some overall updates like we do every month. BAR is the first thing I'm going to update on because it's just that time of year we start thinking about data and how's the year going and looking at what are we going to do next year. So 3 schools, we got BAR implementation taking place or kind of continuing. Southview and middle school, this is our first year of implementation at those 2 levels. We got a grant last year that is supporting that work there. In the high school, in our 5th year, like I mentioned, it's our final year of the grant we've got for that level. So certainly looking for some maybe additional funding through grant process to finish that. But if we don't find the grant, we'll find a way in our budget to continue it. We're very excited about the work taking place. Want to make sure that happens. And as I think about what I see happening there, it's very simple but yet highly effective strategies taking place in our classrooms and our teachers, looking at protocols that we use, considering data around different student work, thinking about the students' individual needs and how we meet those needs for each kid. So it's really exciting work, and I'm excited to have these guys here today to talk more about that with you. Another thing taking place, we had our calendar committee recently thinking about next year's calendar and what's that going to look like. We have start and end dates. State requires we start after Labor Day. We like to be done early in June. And we have contractual needs with staff, and we have a number of hours we need to get in for students. A lot of things that kind of take place in how we structure our year, but not a lot of flexibility around a few things with it. So we did at the school board meeting this last month propose a calendar to the board that they adopted, so that you can find on our website now where you'll see the calendar for next year for families that are looking for those dates to start thinking about everything needed with the calendar for that. May, I want to just share with you, May is American Indian Month in the state of Minnesota. The American Indian Spring event is something we do every year that is tentatively scheduled for May 8th in our high school cafeteria. So anyone interested in learning more about that can reach out to the school and we'll share more information, but that's for American Indian families. It's May 8th again at the high school cafeteria. The READ Act is something else you're going to hear us talking a lot about in the next year. The READ Act is legislation that passed last year about how reading instruction takes place in all of our schools, what that intervention looks like, and just making sure we're supporting students in the best way possible around reading. I feel like Marshall Public Schools has a lot of great things already in place, a lot of strategies and curriculum and intervention things that are already happening. This is going to just force all schools to look at their process in a bigger way. Some professional development that's required for all schools. They're going to require some certain type of curriculum and providing some funding around some of those pieces as well. So we're going through all of that as quickly as the state gets us things. The information is what feels like us, slow to come in with some of that. They've released some curriculum pieces, but there's some additional reconsiderations taking place with some intervention pieces. So we're kind of on hold for right now, with some of that stuff and thinking about how we want to move forward with curriculum purchases and intervention purchases going forward. We don't want to move faster than the state is with that. But that is certainly a lot of conversation taking place. And around the professional development, they've released 3 different professional development opportunities, 3 different things that we can do with staff. So we have to select one of those and think about how do we structure that within our school day for teachers. So a lot of conversations taking place around that for next year, primarily at elementary level, and the following year, the secondary level of middle school and high school will do some additional trainings and some in starting some different pieces there with the READ Act work there. So a lot of work with that. We do every year, I know we get some noon dismissals and parents ask, well, what happens on those days? We recently had a day in February where we had a noon dismissal and we kept staff, and for the afternoon we had some professional development that take place. We do some full day things where students are home. We have professional development things take place. Just want to share, we had recently a professional development morning, so it was one of our full day things. We had different teachers just taking some time to teach to their peers things that are going well in their classrooms. We talk about AI, we talk about artificial intelligence, we talk about social emotional learning for kids. We talk about how to recognize different intervention pieces. We talk about managing behaviors, just some examples of different things that take place. And we have such great expertise within our staff. So we had a really good morning that day. All of our licensed staff attended some of those. We had some sessions for non-licensed staff, and we had a very successful morning that day, and a lot of re-licensure pieces, trainings taking place for teachers in that time. Another thing you've heard of business owners, probably as much as anybody so far, but second annual career and job fair is coming up. That's scheduled for Wednesday, March 27th. That takes place at the high school. That's one of those half days where the students are done at noon, so we've got some time scheduled in the morning. Every grade level at the high school will get to come through and visit different employers in town and just talk about jobs that exist in Marshall. As we think about that CTE work we've talked a lot about the last couple of years in Marshall, we want to stress to our students the opportunities that exist right here in Marshall and expose them to some different things there. So we've got a number of employers coming in. We're going to set up in the gym. Students can go around, visit with them. We got a lot of hands-on things they can touch, they can feel, they can see, they can ask questions of the employers. Some of the employers coming have summer opportunities available for our students too. So those conversations will take place. Students can do some on-the-spot interviews with some different things, and some of it's just talking about, I don't know what I want to do in my future, but this looks really cool. Tell me about that. So something I'm really excited about. It was very well received last year. Decided to do it again. A lot of work for staff to put together, but very well worth it for our students. So Shanda Walker, I think we've had her on the show before. She's our community engagement coordinator. She's really coordinating that event for us, talking to employers and getting people to come in and thinking about what are our kids going to want to see and how can we get them engaged in some of these conversations around jobs that exist in town. So that will happen next week. A couple other things taking place. Elementary schools, we had I Love to Read month in February. That wraps up on March 1st with, we had a special visitor at Parkside. We had Cat in the Hat and Thing 1 and Thing 2. So it's not something we do at the high school. You guys probably haven't seen that there, but elementary school, we get someone dressed up in costume. They go visit classrooms. They kind of make a mess. They throw things around like if you read the book, the Thing 1 and Thing 2. A lot of fun for our elementary kids, and honestly, the staff probably enjoy it just as much as the kids do. So it's a fun way to wrap up I Love to Read month. We had open house for preschool and kindergarten. That was on March 7th in the evening that day. Really big success. Families got to come in, meet staff, tour the building, ask questions, and think about registration for next fall. Early childhood is also wanting to just highlight this month. We have some summer opportunities available. So if you have a child that's looking to go into kindergarten next year, but a little apprehensive about maybe coming to the building, we're running some Ready for Kindergarten classes this summer. They'll take place, some things right at the school. They can come in and just get a little feel for what it might feel like, a short experience, a few days. Some good opportunities though for those kids to get that experience. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can reach out to the school, talk to Tiffany or Sarah in our early childhood department, and they can share more about that for you. At Southview Elementary, something big that happens every year, we have Junior Achievement comes in. It's, local business people come in. They talk about financial literacy with our youngest learners. Again, it kind of builds in that CTE work that we've talked about. They learn about financial literacy, work and career readiness, entrepreneurship, and just they get that exposure with community members and talking about those things that are some of our youngest grade levels. So that's been taking place at Southview recently. It's been well received with those kids at that level. At the middle school, something they wanted to highlight this month, they're doing a March Madness. I think like everyone's got their brackets going on. I think every one of my kids has brought a bracket of some sort home, but they're not always basketball related. So middle school is doing one around books. So middle school, in one of our language arts classes, kids read 2 different books. They go chapter by chapter and they kind of vote on which one's the best, and at the end they pick the winning book out of their March Madness book battle. So that's been fun for the middle school kids. They don't realize it's just a way to get them to read some extra books in March. So a fun little event taking place there. High school, a lot of things taking place there, like always. It is time of year we're doing registration. We've actually completed student registration for the year, and now the high school staff is taking those student registrations, using the numbers of kids that register for different classes. They build a master schedule around that to look at what are the courses students need, what are the courses the kids are telling us they want, then how can we build a schedule around that and get as many kids into as many of the classes as they want as possible. So that work is now really taking place in earnest behind the scenes because the students have now told us what they want for next year. That registration piece is done for next year. The senior students also recently had the opportunity to submit scholarship applications. That's for the Pride in the Tiger scholarship process. That committee is going to be meeting soon to go through all the applications. There's a team of people that meets. They spend like an entire night one night. They read through every student's application. They look at all the scholarships that are available and try and match them up. We have a lot of very generous donors that are part of our community that make these scholarships happen. We're pushing $200,000 in scholarships that will be awarded this year. And each donor has very specific criteria around how they want their scholarship to be given. So the staff is tasked with looking at all of our kids. What have they been in? What activities are they part of? How do they match up to the criteria listed by donors and match those up as well as possible? Encourage anyone that's interested in knowing more about that. That award ceremony is on May 15th. That happens at 7 o'clock. We've done it the last few years at the high school in the gymnasium. It's a very nice ceremony, a nice way to celebrate our kids and just talk about all their achievements throughout their high school year with that. We have CNA classes, so our Career and Technical Center, we've talked a lot about that. We're doing a lot of things extra with those kids. The CNA classes recently did some visits. They got to go to Heritage Point and learn about assisted living site and programs there. They also got to tour a memory care unit when they were there. And then on March 6th, they got to go tour the Avera Sim Lab. So it was a fun experience for those kids learning more about CNA and getting that licensure and ready to enter the workforce in that area. Activities is always a busy area in Marshall. I think we're blessed to have such so many variety of activities in our community for our students and such high-performing teams and groups there. A few things just to highlight in this last month. Boys hockey, their miracle run came to an end versus New Ulm in the section championship. Our head coach, Michael Weiss, does a great job. He received dual honors this year as a Section 3A and Class A Coach of the Year. And Dan Schipper was recognized as the Section 3A's Assistant Coach of the Year. So congratulations to those guys. Our Tiger Girls basketball team unfortunately fell short in their section championship. It was a good game against St. Peter. They concluded the 23-24 season with a 21-9 record. The state championship for wrestlers, we had 8 wrestlers represent us. Dylan Luwaji and Lincoln Christensen both came home with some silver medals, and 4 others earned podium finishes as well. So it was a great season for our wrestlers. Dave Wingert is an assistant coach in our wrestling program. He was recognized as Section 3A Assistant Coach of the Year award as well. So some coaches certainly being recognized for their hard work. Along with activities, we want to mention we've done spring physicals has been a practice in Marshall for as long as I can remember. This year, a little shift with that. So Avera has come in and Access Health has come in and offered those in our high school in the past. This year, we're shifting that to their campus. So the spring physical is going to be offered again this year, but they're going to happen at the Access Health campus. Just gives some more private rooms and a better way to lay out how we provide those physicals for our kids, but still taking place. So watch for more information coming out from the school about physicals this year, because students are still required to have those done every other year. Our speech team is doing very well. They showcased their oratory skills at the national qualifier recently. Mary Lanou achieved 5th place in the humor category. Tigers have 2 more meets before the section tournament at the end of March. I know I was at the high school earlier today and I saw kids leaving with their gear, and they were getting ready for all that. Also with BPA, they've had a very successful year. 52 participants demonstrated skills at state conference in Minneapolis. A significant event to students exhibiting their talent in a variety of different activities with that. So a lot of things taking place, as always. That's just all the time at the high school, and it's so much fun to see our kids involved in so many different activities. And I think as we transition to our conversation about BAR, we think about students that do well in school tend to be more involved in school, and that's something we certainly want to promote, as kids being involved in lots of activities. And just it's so great to see their achievements.
Just a couple of things to mention. State BPA was last weekend. We had 20 students qualify for the national competition later in April in Chicago, so that's exciting. On our way over this afternoon to film this, our speech team was headed to the Big South Conference speech tournament in Fairmont tonight. And so also then next Wednesday when we have that career fair, 56 businesses from the Marshall area are signed up to come in and have booths for our students to see and check out the opportunities. So some really exciting opportunities and a time at Marshall High School.
Yeah, that's great. Certainly a busy time of year for our kids. A lot of things taking place, but that's what we're here for, all about the kids. All right, so Emily and Brian, we're here to talk about specifically BARR, so Building Assets Reducing Risks. BARR is where we come up with that. We talk about BARR a lot at the schools. So we want to talk, just kind of dig in a little bit. This is our 5th year at the high school.
Correct.
A lot of great things that we've seen and some shifts that have happened over the year. I think with anything, we talk about continuous improvement. Each year is like, what can we do better? What can we do different? We've expanded some and we've dug into some things a little bit differently. Your role has changed over the last 5 years with this. I think Brian was a coordinator when we started. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions, dig into it a bit. Let's start with talking about the primary goal or objective. Like, why do we even do this? Why would we bring this into the high school?
We know research has shown across the United States that more 9th grade students fail classes than any other grade, and that puts them behind on credits needed for graduation. So we knew, and we were seeing where we felt like our 9th grade students needed some additional support in making that transition from middle school to high school, where you have to acquire those credits in order to meet graduation requirements.
Sure. So you talk about 9th grade students as a big transition year for kids. We've got all of our kids coming to one location, whether it be from a private school in town or from a local community area school or from our middle school. So big transition year. What specifically makes this a year to implement BARR? Or what happens that year?
Yeah, so like you said, we have about 25% of our 9th grade class every year that's new coming from our feeder schools. So we think of the melting pot, and so we get a lot of different groups of students that come together, and we're just trying to help them get off to a good start. We know statistically the more credits they can earn in 9th grade, the more likely they're to stay on track for graduation in grades 10, 11, 12. In addition to the academic side, it's such a huge time in their lives as they're 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, just developmentally, social-wise, maturity-wise, and then trying to balance their academics. And we were just seeing where we needed to be able to provide them some additional support, some of those students, some additional support in order to be successful. The more successful they are, the more often they'll attend school. The more often they attend, they learn how to become a student, the more likely they are to stay on track for graduation. And so that was really kind of where it began 5-6 years ago, when we just said, Emily and I and our other teachers have been doing this a long time, and we just said the needs of our students are changing. And so we've got to be, as practitioners, flexible enough to change with them to meet them where they're at.
Absolutely.
And so that's really when we started looking at the BARR program. This is the 25th year of the BARR program. Started in Minnesota. It's expanded across the nation. We were able to be part of a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grant. It's called the Network for School Improvement. And so we are one of 31 schools in Minnesota, Illinois, and California. We work together, meet with them on a monthly basis, have opportunities to collaborate, learn from them, they learn from us, and we've really benefited from that over the last 5 years.
Yeah. So I know when we talk about BARR, when someone sees the graphic, there's this image with a bunch of people around it, if you will. Yep. And you kind of just hinted on some of these different components. Can you talk more about the specific components in BARR?
Yep, the BARR program is built up of 8 components, and they talk about the 8 interlocking components, and they all work together. And they involve a variety of things, data-driven. It's very real-time data-driven. Our teachers look at every 9th grader's grades every week, in-progress grades every week, and we keep track of those grades on a spreadsheet. So you can look at a child's entire 9th grade year and see what their grades look like every single week for all 18 weeks.
Because we know if someone's watching, performance is going to be different than if they feel no one's watching.
Exactly, and we use that information for a variety of things, but that has been indicators to us where we see a kid who's consistently performing well, and then something happens and we're like, oh, what's going on? Mm-hmm. So we're able to stop things before the train falls all the way off the track a lot of times, and we're able to see those trends. Sometimes maybe winter's hard and grades dip a little bit in the winter, then we know that student needs a little bit more support during that time. Another one of the interlocking components is actually administration support, which you both provide beautifully. So we very much, the teachers in the BARR program very much appreciate that, because we know the work that we're doing is supported by you. And that's very important to us. Parent involvement is another one of the components. iTimes activities is another component. That's the curriculum that BAR uses for social emotional learning. So every week, each ninth grader participates in an iTime activity that focuses on different aspects of social emotional learning, goal setting, talking about dreams, talking about future plans. When we see the need for iTime activity that focuses on risk-taking or bullying or one of those big issues, we can embed those into their day. So they're learning about these things in a way that helps them put it immediately into practice. Another one of the interlocking components is creating cohorts of students, and those students share the same teachers, along with teachers being able to communicate with each other and bounce ideas off each other. Before the BAR program, I was part of the ninth grade year-long program, and so me, Mitchell Maxwell, and Bessie Sklicki would meet every week and have these wonderful conversations, but we were the only ones doing that. Now with the BAR program, we're able to have a bigger group of teachers come together and be able to have conversations and bounce ideas off each other and use those problem-solving skills like, hey, this seemed to work really well for me. Maybe you want to try that in your classroom. And that has gone so far in terms of being able to help more students.
So what I hear you saying, and we talk about this being a framework, just to clarify for our listeners a little bit, this isn't like here's a curriculum, here's a book, now go through this. It's really more thinking about how we manage processes and how we look at data and how we really, we talk a lot about, we look at the individual needs of each kid across the whole district, we talk about that, and we provide what that kid needs. This is a very specific way to look at that. So I'm looking at data, and you've mentioned academics, but it's not just academics. There are other things we look at too. You want to talk a little bit about some of those other things we look at too?
Yep. We look at academics probably first because on the surface, that's the easiest one to keep track. Right, and it's the easiest one to keep track of.
Yep.
You open up the grade book, you see the grades, and it's easy for us to look at that first. We also look at peer relationships. Who is that kid hanging out with at lunch? Who's that kid walking in the halls with? Who does that kid offer to sit by if they get to sit with their own friends in a classroom? Who works well in groups with others? Who wants to be a lab partner with certain people? We look at all of those different things because it builds a better picture for each student. And actually talking about school involvement with all of the activities that are available at Marshall High School, that's one of the major things that we talk about with students too. How are they connected to school? Are they in an activity? Are they in a sport? Are they participating in band? Are they in choir? Do they seem to interact with peers? Are they part of the group of kids who plays chess at lunchtime in one of the science rooms? So we fit all of these different pieces together, and it really helps us help as many kids as we can, because then it isn't just, they have an A, okay. You know,
There's more to the high school experience than just the grades you have in science class.
Right.
It's really helped us look at the whole child and not just the academic piece or not just a deficit piece. And we're very intentional, the BAR program is very intentional about having us always start and focus on what are those students' strengths, and thinking about what those strengths are, and then trying to build our interventions and support for that student on an individual basis based off of their strengths, and not automatically defaulting to here's the area that they need to work on, and we zero in and dwell on that, but we're looking at the whole child and trying to think about how can we help them, not just currently, immediately, but into the future, the next 3 years of high school, and preparing them for that next steps, the next phase of their life.
Right, and I've been able to attend a couple of your meetings where you have these conversations. I think that's what stands out to me the most, is it's easy to fall in that conversation of, well, Brian's failing math because Brian never does homework, so I guess we'll tell his parents and let them take care of it. That's not how this works. It's, I see Brian struggling here, but we start with, boy, he's really good at these things. Here's something he needs some help with. how can we play off those strengths to make that happen? How can we work together? I know you've got a great connection with them, so can you help us make that happen? So it's really thinking about that whole child, and it's a great conversation. You always leave feeling good about our school when you leave that conversation. So,
And as a teacher, because I started off as a teacher in the bar program, and then now as the bar coordinator, my role has kind of shifted a little bit. But as a teacher, I remember the moment where we had our first meeting where we sat down and we started with the strengths. It wasn't just like, oh, here's a problem, and here's a problem, and here's a problem. We all left that meeting feeling like rejuvenated and like, okay, we have a plan in place. We have a plan on paper.
Yeah.
This is the steps we're going to follow to help this kid. If that doesn't work, then this is what we're going to try next. And
Yeah.
it was just such a wonderful feeling of being able to actually focus on, this kid is really, really good at these things. These are where we can build interventions that are going to help this kid the most. And that was just a wonderful aspect of the bar program.
right.
Jeremy, the other thing, a couple of other things. One, this is all research proven a program, and so it's gone through numerous research studies. It's not just something that someone dreamed up and thought, oh, this will be great and let's do it. So it's gone through a variety of federal education research studies. So when it came to us, we felt good about that we knew we had quality. They've worked with Hazel and Betty Ford, so people in Minnesota probably have some familiarity with that. And I think that's been a real positive. The other part, as a building administrator, that I've appreciated is the focus on continuous improvement, and it uses some research-proven continuous improvement practices and principles that have been used in business since the 1950s with Edward Deming, and it allows us as school practitioners to put some of those into place, to examine what we do, and always are thinking about ways to how can we make this process better in hopes of getting better results.
And actually, because of our district's focus on continuous improvement over all these years, Brian and I were asked to present at the national conference on how we use continuous improvement, specifically plan, do, study, act cycles.
Which has become a huge part of the process. So, when we talk about, because I know we're running low on time, we talk about how well this is going. We talk about, we feel good leaving the meeting, but it's more than just we feel good. You have some actual data to back up that this is working. You talk a little bit about the data we have and how that demonstrates the effectiveness of BAR at our high school.
One of the big gauges that I look at is how well are our students doing. And so the percentage of freshmen in all of our grades, but specifically freshmen in the BAR program, that are passing all of their classes. So that percentage. And we set some goals for ourselves as part of our school improvement plan annually, and we're looking at that every 3 weeks. Emily's digging in and looking at that every single week. She's bringing that information back and we're sharing. So it's kind of like constantly watching that speedometer on your car dash and those gauges to make sure, are you performing and functioning where you want to? And if not, then we're talking about making some adjustments. Other areas that we're looking at are attendance. Behavior is a great indicator that BARS, it's really helped us refocus on those high pieces, important pieces of data to just keep a constant eye on as compared to looking at them at the end of the year. Well, at the end of the year, it's too late to make any changes. So we're down to the point where we're looking at things weekly and then sometimes daily, trying to figure out ways to make adjustments to the process to improve the system.
Sure. So we've got a lot of things in place for that student who wasn't successful in English 9 or wasn't successful in Algebra 1A. But this is about looking at them while they're going through it and saving them from not being successful. Those other, like our ALC, for example, that will still exist because there'll still be kids with that need.
Yep.
But this is to try and save kids from getting there. That's not that, we talk about that falling through the cracks. This is catching them without that happening.
Yep.
And I know you've expanded a little bit. We've talked about 9th grade, but you're doing some with 10th grade too. You want to just touch on that?
Yeah.
Yep. We have a pilot 10th grade group this year of about 45 to 50 students. And they are the students that we identified last year at the beginning of this school year, the ones that we had identified last year. But we added to that group students who are chronically absent. And so we wanted to keep a little closer eye on students who are chronically absent and see how that affects their academics and all of those sorts of things, because we're trying to get a little better handle on our chronic absentee rate in our chronic absentee problem. So the pilot group of 10th graders, I handle all the tracking information for that group, and I communicate with all the 10th grade teachers of, hey, what do you see with this kid? Hey, what's going on with this kid? Hey, can you contact with this kid and see if he can make up his assignment? All those sorts of things.
Right. It's great. You guys are doing great work. I really appreciate everything you're doing at the high school. I appreciate being here today. I know not your favorite thing necessarily to come and do Tiger Talk and share, but I think our community needs to know what we're doing too. So thank you for being here today. And to our listeners, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next month.